Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Penscast. I am your host, Garrett Bahana. Alongside me, fellow contributing writer over at Pittsburgh.com and co-host of the Penscast, it is Robbie Noggle. Robbie, it is April 14th, 2023, and what do you want to talk about on this edition of the Penscast?
Well, I was just sitting here. I pretty much been spending the last hour trying to think of what we could possibly talk about after what was I guess you could define a slow week for the Penguins, really. Not much going on, but I'm sure that there's something that is making headlines that we can find some time to at least give the folks something to listen to this week.
Well, I guess the big topic at hand, maybe it's Jason Zucker's contract extension. Will Jason Zucker be a Pittsburgh Penguin? That can't be it.
No.
Tristan Jarry. Jarry.
No? Yeah, he hurt. Yeah, I guess.
You're right.
Could it be that the Penguins fired Ron Hextall and the entire front office on Friday morning?
You know what? I think for the good of the podcast, I think that will be the story that we lead
I think
with.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, Robbie, let's dive into it. You were vocally on the train of believing that Ron Hextall, his days in Pittsburgh were numbered as Pittsburgh Penguins general manager. And Friday morning, we got the news: the Penguins relieved Brian Burke, Ron Hextall, and assistant general manager Chris Pryor of their duties. Fenway Sports Group was leading that charge. And Robbie, we could be here for hours on end discussing the ups and downs, the ins and outs of the Ron Hextall era, the 2 years that he was in charge of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I think we've done that ad nauseum throughout the course of this season. So, Robbie, you expected it. I expected it. I think the majority of the Penguins fandom expected it, especially after losing in overtime to the Columbus Blue Jackets 3-2 on Thursday. The Fenway Sports Group wasted no time in saying that they wanted to go in a different direction, and this is exactly that. And give me a little bit of time to pull up some of the recent articles and quotes. But as I do that, Robbie, you had been forecasting it, and you had been hypothesizing it and wanting it to happen. And like I said, I think everyone wanted it to happen on some level. But Ron Hextall and Ryan Burke are out. What were your initial reactions when the news dropped early Friday morning?
Well, I can't really say that, and I think that most people will go along with this, is really nobody's surprised, right? Maybe there was an inkling of doubt in your head that, maybe they won't do it, but I'm pretty sure that the way things all played out, that Ron Hextall and Brian Burke and that entire front office team were not going to be managing the Penguins much longer. Before the game against Columbus, which we can touch on a little bit later, there's not much to really talk about there, but it kind of came out that basically the whispers were saying that the Penguins were in the process, or the Fenway Sports Group, the owners were in the process of preparing to fire the hockey ops staff, which includes Brian Burke, Ron Hextall, and Chris Pryor. and the whispers, they weren't as the day went on Thursday, the whispers weren't much whispers anymore. You kind of saw the writing on the wall. And then Friday morning, I think it was about 11 o'clock, the news broke. The Penguins released a statement saying that those three had been relieved of their duties and a new search for general manager will begin immediately, basically. After, when the news breaks, all the details kind of come forward. It basically said that Ron Hextall and Brian Burke had been saying their goodbyes to the staff at PPG Paints Arena and within the Penguins organization as early as Wednesday before going out to Columbus. They did travel with the team to Columbus. I'm pretty much sure at that point they pretty much knew. And this was, I guess, before the Penguins had officially been eliminated from playoff contention. They were eliminated officially on Wednesday night. So it came out, they were saying their goodbyes and thank yous before departing for Columbus on Wednesday. And one has to think that the game against Chicago was, I mean, if there was any nail left to pound into the coffin, that was kind of the last hammer swing. After the loss on Thursday night, about an hour, I think somebody said after the Penguins would ride back in Pittsburgh, Rob Rossi of The Athletic tweeted a very ominous, it was just an axe emoji, which kind of pretty much was the unofficial news breaking. I believe it was Dejan Kovacevic that said that everybody that he had talked to were pretty much saying that, yeah, it was going to be on Friday at the earliest that the news that the announcement was going to come. Some people might thought it might be through the weekend, but the belief was it was going to come rather quickly, and rather quickly it did on Friday morning just before lunchtime. And yeah, I don't think anybody's really surprised at all, to be honest with you. The writing was on the wall, not just because of the loss to Chicago. This is a kind of just a snowballing of events that led to this, and it's quite clear that it was time. And now we look to the future and hope for better things. And we'll talk a little bit more here in a little bit about what was said during the Fenway Sports Group press conference this afternoon. But I think overall that a lot of Penguin fans are obviously disappointed with how the season ended, but breathing a little lighter as we go into this weekend.
That was, you mentioned it right there, Robbie, and I want to talk about that really right now. The Fenway Sports Group aspect of this entire transaction and the direction of the Penguins moving forward, because my biggest concern, and I have been concerned about this for a large chunk of the latter half of the season, was what is Fenway Sports Group thinking? We as fans and media members alike, really, we never got a solid foundation for what Fenway Sports Group looked like. How were they handling some of these transactions? What were their internal feelings on Ron Hextall and his leadership? And you mentioned it, the Fenway Sports Group staged a press conference basically following up after relieving Hextall and company of their duties, and there was a name that Hooks Orpik, our overlord over at Pittsburgh.com, he brought up in the first line of his article talking about Fenway Sports Group and their press conference, the name David Beeston. Beeston allegedly was the main representative at the majority of the Penguins games this year. So it seems like he was one of the more plugged in individuals of this Fenway Sports Group collective, and he seems like he has the pulse on this franchise. And the majority of this press conference, basically, what I took away from this, Robbie, was that Fenway Sports Group, I was concerned because I thought they were going to be about bottom dollar and nothing else. And, you know, for a collective like that who has other entities like Liverpool and the Boston Red Sox, a lot of times it's profit over everything else. And that still may be true to an extent, but the vibe that I got from this press conference was that Fenway Sports Group has a direction. One of the key buzzwords in that Beeston was talking about, and Fenway Sports Group wanted to assure the fandom and the rest of the franchise was that the next general manager they want that person to be forward thinking. And immediately my head went to building up not only a reputable hockey operations department, but really hammering home the importance of analytics in today's game. Advanced metrics, puck possession numbers, all of that encompassing data into an analytics department. And for a while, I believe, under the Jim Rutherford regime, there was something of an analytics department. And I think under the Hextall team as well, the analytics department wasn't really closed down per se, but I believe it became less pronounced. And I don't know how much feedback the analytics department was giving the likes of Ron Hextall or Brian Burke or Jim Rutherford for that matter. To me, Robbie, this is exactly what I wanted to hear from Fenway Sports Group when they look at this new direction that they have to take this franchise in. They understand Sidney Crosby and Evgeni Malkin and Kris Letang remain viable box office commodities. I believe Fenway Sports Group knows that they can be competitive with Crosby and Malkin. And now it's up to Fenway Sports Group, perhaps with some guidance from Mario Lemieux as well. He was brought up in this press conference as well. It's up to them to really, Robbie, they have to hit a home run here, because that is how damaging the Ron Hextall era, the 2 years he was here, that's how damaging it was for the Penguins. The Fenway Sports Group, if they really want to maximize what's left of this era, they have to hit one out of the park here, in my opinion. That's not to say every transaction is going to be undone or every new signee or draft acquisition is going to be an immediate superstar, but I left the press conference thinking I like the direction of where this is going. I am a firm believer of using analytics in your hockey operations department. Sam Ventura, a Pittsburgh native who I believe at one point was employed by the Penguins and I believe currently works for the Buffalo Sabres analytics department, he was a pioneer in hockey analytics and using some of his data and his models to try and make analytics more digestible and more of a normal occurrence when trying to examine player personnel. So, Robbie, I couldn't have been more satisfied with the direction that Fenway Sports Group wants to take moving forward. This is just the beginning, as we are still in mid-April. The Stanley Cup playoffs have not even begun. I imagine, Robbie, if you're feeling the same way, I have to think that a new general manager would have to be put in place before the draft. That was my first thought, was that they'd obviously like to have someone in there before the NHL draft. The name that has been circling on social media is current Toronto Maple Leafs general manager Kyle Dubas, whose contract expires at the end of this season. Robbie, we'll talk about Kyle Dubas and potential candidates in a second, but we'll go back and focus on this Fenway Sports Group press conference here. What were your takeaways from this press conference? Did you like the vibe that FSG gave? Do you like the direction that the Penguins are headed under this new ownership group?
Yeah, I think the press conference by Fenway Sports Group today definitely was exactly what needed to be done. And they have unfairly or unfairly been kind of branded as an absentee owner. Many people were questioning the transaction these past couple months. Did they even care? They hadn't really promoted the Penguins on any of their socials or their website. And I think that today kind of lifted the curtain on what Fenway Sports Group's all about. They are a big portfolio when it comes to ownership groups. That for years we were so used to in Pittsburgh, and we kind of still are. I mean, not having every owner of a team in Pittsburgh has kind of been there's been a face to it. Let's put it that way. With the Steelers, you have the Rooney family, whether it was Art Sr., Dan, Art Jr., you know who the Steelers owners are, and you trust them as owners to do the right by the franchise and the fans. The Pirates, obviously, we can do podcast episodes just complaining if we were a Pirates podcast, just harping on the Pirates ownership. If you want that content, you can go to Talk the Plank, the fans first Sports Network Pirate podcast. Go check them out. But hey, we know that it's Bob Nutting. He's kind of the face there. We know the ownership group, stuff like that. With the Penguins for almost 23 years, it was the Lemieux group, forefronted by the most famous Penguin in history in Mario Lemieux, and everybody knew who Ron Burke was as well. You knew those faces. Well, FSG has no ties to Pittsburgh. John Henry, you might know who that is if you're tuned into sports enough. Obviously, the names that they're involved with Liverpool FC, one of the biggest soccer clubs in the world. Obviously, the Red Sox, everybody knows, whether you're a baseball fan or not, you know who the Boston Red Sox are. They were coming from out of state in the Northeast, but they were from outside of Pittsburgh. They didn't have the Yinzer background, I guess you could say. They weren't from Pittsburgh. They weren't the way that Yinzer's talked about it. They weren't from here. But yeah, I think that all in all, if you look at what they do, they generally know what they're doing. They've won UEFA Champions League titles. They've won a Premier League title. They've won World Series with the Red Sox. This isn't their first rodeo. This isn't some upstart ownership group that just decided to buy a hockey team and see what happened. See what throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks, basically. They have experience, and they're not going to be as front-facing as maybe a guy like Mario was, but based on what we hear in that press conference, Mario is going to be a part of this. He's still a part of this, and maybe he just needed, now that the sale was final, just needed a year away. Maybe he just needed to take a year off, focus on himself, focus on his family, and just take a step away from the hockey team. Again, the final decision will come down to the majority owners, being Fenway Sports Group. But I think everything we heard today is reassuring, at the very least. And the names were being thrown around even before the news came out. The biggest name being thrown around, Kyle Dubas. Even if even if Toronto is not eliminated early and they do make a little bit of a run, Kyle Dubas' contract's up. He's essentially a free agent whenever, I don't know if it's July 1st like it is with players, but if he doesn't re-up, he's a free agent and can go wherever he wants to. Now, if they go on to win a cup, all logic kind of states that they're gonna re-sign him. But hey, crazier things have happened that way. So yeah, Dubas is obviously going to be a big name. Sam Ventura, he's a Pittsburgh kid. He would fill the from me void that has been kind of missing from the Penguins, I guess you could say. But he's in Buffalo right now, an assistant general manager. He was with the Penguins. He basically ran their analytics department for a couple years. He has his name on the Stanley Cup twice, I believe. So that would be a very big name. Eric Tulsky, who is from currently an AGM in with the Hurricanes, and you can quite see what the Hurricanes have done these last few years since he got there. And again, those are two guys that basically started their journeys in hockey by tweeting. I'm not even being sarcastic. That is literally how they became well known. And those are going to be names you hear. Chris Johnson of, I believe, Sports Network, Sportsnet in Canada, basically said that his belief and what he is kind of hearing is that the Penguins want to bring in someone that has never held a general manager role in the NHL. Is that true? I don't know. There's plenty of fresh blood out there, and that may scare away some people but that doesn't mean they'll have no experience in a front office. They're not going to just pick somebody random and hire them. It's going to be somebody that knows the game, has experience at least in some kind of front office atmosphere, and that is a role that it kind of fits the mold of a Ventura or a Tulsky. They've never been a GM, but they have the experience. FSG, it is well documented that they are forward thinking when it comes to analytics, and the belief is whoever they do hire will have a blank check when it comes to the hockey operations department in Pittsburgh. So a lot of names to kind of keep an eye on. There's going to be some names you've heard of, some you haven't. Mario's going to get a say, so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes exactly, but I think there's definitely a lot of reassurance that came from that press conference today.
You touched on not only the positives that came from the press conference from FSG's point of view, but also touching on some of the candidates, like you mentioned, it is their preference to go with someone who perhaps doesn't have actual general managing experience. So I'm not sure how long of a process this is going to take. I imagine this could be a couple of weeks, perhaps maybe a month and a half kind of endeavor. We just have to wait and see. But what we do know for now is the Penguins are once again on the hunt for a new general manager, and whoever accepts that role, but they're coming into a situation that isn't. It's appealing in one sense, and it might not be so appealing from another because of some of the contracts that the Penguins are stuck with. Still paying the likes of Jack Johnson. They're going to pay Jeff Carter for another season. Mikael Granlund, if he sticks around, he is here for 2 more seasons at $5 million per season. Brian Dumoulin is a free agent. Jason Zucker is a free agent. Jake Gensel is going to be in line for an extension as well. So there are some pros and cons to becoming the next general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins, but one thing is certain, it's going to be a brand new face. And we don't have a ton of concrete details as we sit here on the evening of April 14th, the day that Ron Hextall and Brian Burke were relieved of their duties. What we do know, however, is it sounds like Fenway Sports Group is committed to maximizing however many years are left for Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. So, as always, stay with the Skating Penguin Network in audio form. Stay with Pensburg.com as we bring you the latest Penguins news. Robbie, do you have any other bullet points, any other topics of conversation before we wrap up what has been a fascinating day in Penguins history with the search for a new general manager beginning?
Yeah, I think that, obviously, whoever is hired as general manager, and I think it's going to be, especially if they're going to target guys like Dubas and Tulsky, guys that you have to think are going to be hanging around the playoffs a while. There's going to be some waiting there if they do want to talk to those guys. So we're probably going to be a few weeks away from getting any kind of clarity on this situation. Though at this point right now, being not even in the playoffs, there's nothing you could maybe look at getting some small business out of the way when it comes to some contracts, but nothing big is going to get done, and nothing big really needs to get done until I'd say the conference finals is when we would start. You're getting closer to Memorial Day at that point. So, we have a little time to wait on that. But whoever it is going to have a lot on their plate when they step into the role. Starting with, obviously, Jason Zucker's the big name free agent. What do we do with the goalie situation? The comments by Jari basically saying that he's been just hurt all season and just playing through it, and it's affected his play. You might be in a situation where you need to look for 2 goaltenders, the new general manager, which is not great, but that's part of the job, I guess. And then your free agent, Jason Zucker, who pretty much said, I want to be in Pittsburgh. Is Zucker willing to take maybe a little more of a hometown deal to remain in Pittsburgh? Are the Penguins willing to commit long-term to him, or can they do a shorter deal, a 2 or 3 year deal to retain Jason Zucker? The Brian Dumoulin question. Obviously, it seems like Dumoulin's on his way out. I would be shocked that he is retained, but again, he is a pending free agent. And then you have the guys that aren't free agents, but something needs to be done. Jeff Carter, does Carter retire? I don't know what happens. It's tough to say what would happen. Mikael Granlund, obviously 2 years left at $5 million each, and just a complete disaster of a trade. What's done there? Do we look into buyouts? The blue line's going to need work again, especially with Brian Dumoulin likely out the door. Who takes that role? Is it Marcus Pettersson's time to take that next step and find a way to work with Kris Letang? All those questions need answered for this new GM, and then it's not just getting rid of those guys or fixing it's getting players in. It's running through free agency. It's preparing for the draft. It's building up the analytics department again, and it's going to be a project, but at least it's not one of those things where we have to try to figure out what's wrong. We know what the problems are, and the problems, while while they won't be easy to fix, are apparent, and it's something that the next general manager will hopefully be ready to take in stride once he takes on the job. But I can't believe we went through this entire episode without basically, the Penguins are out of the playoffs. First time in 16 years. Quite a run. I kind of said on Twitter the night that it happened or Wednesday night, I guess they were technically eliminated. Tuesday was the ugly loss of the Blackhawks, which was kind of the beginning of the eulogy. But first time in 16 years. First time since I was a sophomore in high school. I was just a few weeks away from getting my driver's license. I was still on a driving permit. Really, when you start putting it into context like that, pretty crazy to think about how long this streak was. And the next closest streak was 8 years by the Capitals and Predators. And really, the three longest streaks were snapped this year. The Penguins at 16, the Capitals and Predators at 8, and now Boston is at 6, and they are currently the longest active playoff streak in the NHL, which is really says something. It really gives credence to what the Penguins did over the last 16 years. It's pretty darn impressive when you look back on it, and it's easy to pick out the failures of this year and kind of focus on them. But I think the best thing for the fans to do right now is to kind of get ready for the general manager search, but also look back on the last 16 years and remember fun times, 3 cups. And yeah, it kind of feels like we're closing the book on an era, but I really don't think we are. I think with the right moves, this team can be back in contention next year with a forward-thinking front office and one that is ready to take on this task. And I'm excited. I'm definitely more excited than I was Wednesday night, even though I knew the firing was probably coming. To hear the, I guess, optimism and outlook from the FSG team, it definitely, I think, it's going to be a long spring and summer for the Penguins and their fans, but really a lot to look forward to between, I guess, now and July when free agency starts. It's going to be busy, hectic. A lot's going to be going down, and it's still a good time to be a Penguins fan. So let's hope that we can kind of, be a little disappointed, but here in the next few weeks, we can start getting back to being a little more positive and looking forward to next season and what it may hold as these moves pan out over the next couple weeks. And if you're a hockey fan like me, you know there's going to be some really good hockey, even though the Penguins won't be partaking. A lot of really good first-round series beginning on Monday. So, tune into that. There's a lot of hockey in these next couple weeks. Best of luck to the fans of the teams. That if you're not a Penguins fan listening and you're in the playoffs, good luck, enjoy it. And I think it just kind of drives home all the more that enjoy it because hey, even 16 years went fast and kind of feels it's a sucky feeling. You kind of forget how it feels. But no, if you're a Penguins fan, enjoy some good hockey, even though the Penguins aren't in it. Stress-free hockey, I guess, and enjoy these next few weeks and. Let's get excited about where this team's going while the big guns are still here.
Yeah, you really put a bow on this episode of the Penscast. So, I basically agree with everything that Robbie said. It feels like the end of an era, but also it's not like this window is closing forever because Crosby, Malkin, and Letang will all return to the ice in October later this year. And in the interim, like Robbie mentioned, there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and we will be with you every step of the way. Every major announcement that is made this summer, draft picks, free agent acquisitions, the hiring of a brand new general manager, we'll have all of it here at the Skating Penguin Network on future episodes of the Penscast, also over at pensburg.com in a written form. But like Robbie said, this is just the beginning of what is surely going to be a crucial turning point in the Penguins franchise history. And if I could steal a Mike Lang-ism, we talked about Mike Lang just a couple of days ago on the mailbag episode of the Penscast. Buckle up, baby, because it is surely going to be one crazy summer for the black and gold flightless birds in Pittsburgh. But until Robbie and I talk to you again, I have been Garrett Bahana for Robbie Noggle. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Penscast, and we will talk to you all again this time next week.